Here we go. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and with NFL free agency getting underway on Monday, the start of the new league year next week, there is a lot to talk about here on the show. And no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, as always, I greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day as we go through the latest 49ers news and rumors. A lot of buzz out there, and as we always do, we're going to chop it up with the Niner gang. So coming up here on the show, we're going to hit this and a whole lot more. I'm going to go through several moves that the 49ers can make to create cap space, about $45 million going into NFL free agency. That money can be used for free agency and later on this offseason for those post-June 1 designations. Also going to go through the top free agent targets at every single position on the football field. Players who the Niners could sign with free agency starting on Monday. We have some very interesting behind-the-scenes Deebo Samuel details. He wrote an article on the Players Tribune, and he talked about his trade request, his time with the Niners, and behind-the-scenes stuff where he peeled back the curtain to give us some insight that we would never know about if he didn't write this article. And then we'll do a mailbag, so get involved. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. What's up, Niner gang? Let's do a real one roll call. I want you to spam the comment section saying whatever the heck that you want to say. It's Chase Sr. and Jake Chipper here with you. I'm looking at the comment section right now. I see Elijah the Prophet, East Coast Red and Gold Podcast, Rachel Fry, Abram, Nelson, East Coast again, Tony Nagatani, Richard Doty, Tom, the Lord Shasta, Noel Moon, Dave Zobel Jr., Shadow Prods, RF, Christian, Daniel, Willie, all in the building right now as we have people rocking and rolling with us from every pocket of America and worldwide. Also, show your pride. The Niners already with a very interesting offseason underway. A couple of coordinator hirings with Brant Boyer, special teams coordinator. The big one before that, Robert Saleh as the defensive coordinator. Deebo Samuel got traded. Niners were taking calls on Brandon Aiyuk, Trey Hendrickson, given permission to seek a trade from the Cincinnati Bengals. Could the Niners go after a player like that? It's going to be a big offseason for the Niners to set themselves up for 2025, but also beyond that. So if you want a big offseason from San Francisco, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Also, segment number 4 will be that aforementioned mailbag. So with that Q&A coming up, get those questions in. Use the hashtag 49ers, or if you send in a super chat, we're going to answer your questions first. As far as some of the buzz that we're going to talk about throughout the show and right now, Brandon Aiyuk, is he going to get traded after the Niners traded Deebo Samuel last Saturday to the Washington Commanders? The New England Patriots, the team that's being mentioned a lot as a potential Aiyuk suitor. Drake May had a really good rookie year. They don't have much wide receiver talent at all. New England knows that they need to bulk up that offense a little bit with some skill position talent. Aiyuk's available. I imagine they're going to make some calls, if they haven't already done so, on a player like DK Metcalf before T. Higgins got the franchise tag placed on him. I imagine the Patriots were showing interest in him. And Todd McShay, former ESPN NFL draft analyst and now has his own podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network, hearing rumors about the Patriots trying to land Brandon Aiyuk. They offered him $32 million per year last year, but Aiyuk said, if you trade me there, I'm not going to sign a contract extension. But now that he signed that contract extension, the Niners can trade him anywhere. So if San Francisco wants to open up some cap space, if they want to get out from under that Aiyuk deal, especially with him coming off that knee injury, and if the offer is right, I would not rule out an Aiyuk trade. And then the Niners move forward with Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Jacob Cowing in that wide receiver room. Maybe they sign a player like Devontae Adams, and then they also draft a wide receiver. That could be a part of their team-building strategy. And then another player who could get dealt, who could be of interest to the Niners, is Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson. According to Adam Schefter, Bengals have taken the rare step of granting the All-Pro permission to seek a trade. Hendrickson saying, it's been an honor and a privilege to represent Cincinnati over the last 4 years. I love the city and organization. I appreciate the privilege of now being allowed to explore my options. This is a really good player, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you go after a player like Joey Bosa, he's a free agent. He's also been injury prone. He's 29 years old, and his price tag might be lower. For Hendrickson, you would have to trade for him. You'd have to take on a salary of $16 million, which is not guaranteed. You'd have to probably guarantee that. And then he also is 30 years old, but you'd have to give him a contract extension. The plus, though, is that you team him up with Nick Bosa. You can get after the quarterback, ideally with 4, and Hendrickson, 17.5 sacks each of the last 2 years. So that's a combined 35 sacks the last 2 seasons. No other player has more in the National Football League, and this past year, he finished second behind Patrick Surtain for Defensive Player of the Year voting. If you're ready to start the show, 300 people are currently watching live. Let's bring some new people in here. You can help us accomplish that by simply hitting that thumbs up icon and liking the video. 45 likes right now with almost 300 people hanging out. We should be able to get to 100 likes in about 10 seconds. So hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. What I want to do first for segment number 1 is go through several moves that the Niners can make in order to open up about $45 million of cap space going into the new league year. So we're about to do that right now. You're watching the 49ers Report live here on Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., Jake Chipper here to my right. We have plenty to talk about, so let's let the official show start right now. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. What I want to accomplish on today's show, NFL free agency begins on Monday. We're going to be live all next week right here on the 49ers Report. So I want to go through some moves that the Niners can make in order to free up cap space, about $45 million. Currently, the Niners have just under $29 million in cap room. That's 20th in the NFL. With some of these post-June 1 designations, that cap number and the money freed up wouldn't be available to the Niners until later on that summer or this summer, but that's okay because that money can be used on a player like Brock Purdy if and when the Niners sign him to a contract extension. If they restructure some contracts, if they sign players to contract extensions, that money can be utilized right away in NFL free agency for the start of the new league year, which is next week. The trade of Deebo Samuel did cost San Francisco about $15 million on the cap because of that dead money charge. So that's why the cap number, which was a little bit higher, is now under $30 million, ranking the Niners 20th. But they can quickly climb back up the ladder among all 32 teams in available cap space by making these following moves. If the Niners were to restructure All-Pro linebacker Fred Warner's contract, they could save $12.3 million. If the Niners were to give him a contract extension, that would free up $13.2 million. There isn't really a concern right now with Fred Warner hitting the open market anytime soon. He's set to be a free agent in 2027. He's currently 28 years old, but he has no more guaranteed money left on his contract. So this could be a similar situation to Christian McCaffrey last year, where he has no more guaranteed money left on his deal. He wants to restructure, but the smart play too could be to give Fred Warner a contract extension, push that money down the road when you know the salary cap is going to continue to go up, and in the immediacy of the moment, you free up some cap space right now. And I have no concerns with giving Fred Warner a contract extension. Still playing at an elite level. He's been extremely durable. He's missed one game in his career. After he broke his ankle in week 4, he played the rest of the season, even when the Niners season was over and their playoff hopes were shot. Linebackers historically can age well. Fred Warner is still an excellent athlete, and I don't see any signs of him slowing down. He has been a first-team All-Pro 3 straight years, and he's been named a first-team All-Pro 4 of the last 5 years. And even though he was banged up for a majority of the 2024 season, and before that ankle injury against New England in week 4, he was looking like a defensive player of the year, he still played really good football this season. 131 tackles, 1 sack, 5 TFLs, 4 forced fumbles, a lot of pass breakups. He's still a game changer. As for George Kittle, if the Niners restructured his contract as he's going into the final year of his deal, that could clear up just shy of $10 million. The play here, I think, is for San Francisco to give one of the best tight ends in the NFL and the best all-around tight end in the NFL, pass catcher, run blocker, a contract extension. If the Niners give Kittle a contract extension, that will lead to about $10.5 million of cap space being at the disposal of San Francisco. For Kittle, he's entering the final year of his deal. He's going to turn 32 years old in October. Warner and Kittle should be career-long Niners. They're consummate pros. They are great leaders. They're everything that you want in a football player. They really have the elements that the Niners look for in players. And I just don't see how they're going to go anywhere. And like Fred Warner, George Kittle is still playing elite football. And like linebackers can age well, tight ends can age well. And there's a little bit of a misnomer out there about Kittle being injury prone. He's actually been a pretty durable player throughout his career. Will he miss a game here and there? Yes. But for the most part, he's been pretty damn durable. And he's a really unique specimen at 6'4", 250 with the athlete that he is, the way that he's able to move at that size. So important to this Niners offense. And he might have a bigger role moving forward after the trade of Deebo Samuel. Sometimes there are too many mouths to feed. I think Deebo is feeling that a little bit. And he's looking at the future of this Niners team saying, I'm not sure if I want more touches, if I can get more touches on this team. But I think that could work out well for San Francisco, because when Kyle Shanahan has tried to force-feed Deebo the football, I think the offense has gotten worse. We saw it last year, especially in that Rams game. We saw it in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. And I actually think that George Kittle should be more of a focal point of this offense. Last year, despite missing a game here and there, still had 78 catches for 1,100-plus yards, 8 touchdowns. And ever since Brock Purdy became this team's starting quarterback, his touchdown numbers have skyrocketed. And he has been a great weapon for Purdy. Red zone, in between the 20s, Yak King, really special player. And Kittle, like Fred Warner, the accolades are there, right? No signs of slowing down. He's been a first or a second team All-Pro in 5 of his last 7 seasons. So I think the play for the Niners should be give Fred Warner a contract extension, because I think he can continue to play at a really high level, and you free up some cap space now. Fred Warner not going to be a free agent until 2027. Not much of a rush to do that. But if you want to free up some cap space and allocate those dollars somewhere else, you can accomplish that. With a player like George Kittle, there's more pressure as far as the timeline because he's going into the final year of his deal. I want to put you to the test, though, before we continue to move forward on today's show. Your favorite all-time Niner. Who is it between these two players here to my right? Both greats. FW for Fred Warner, GK for George Kittle. Share your opinions with me and embrace debate down in the comment section right now. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app in the game. More than 10 million active members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings. And right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And with Prize Picks, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on their projected stats. And it's just so much fun. Head to prizepicks.com/CLNS and get that $50 when you play $5. We have some season-long football picks that we can tell you about. And this is how the game works. Jared Goff, let's go with the less on the passing yards for 2025. New offensive coordinator. Travis Kelce, getting older. Let's go less than 774.5 receiving yards. And then Jaden Daniels, less than 824.5 rushing yards. I think they're going to put more on his plate as a passer. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Pick more, pick less. prizepicks.com/CLNS. We'll put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's San Francisco 49ers report. More avenues that the Niners can take to free up some dollars. If they restructure Leonard Floyd's deal, that would clear up just north of $5 million. If they gave him a contract extension, that's unlikely. That would be up to $5.36 million in cap savings. If the Niners designated him as a post-June 1 cut, that opens up just under $8 million. I think the play here is to maybe cut Floyd to free up some of that cash. He was solid, but not great in 2024. He broke his streak of consecutive seasons of 9+ sacks. He still did have 8.5. Not great against the run. Solid pass rusher, but I don't think the Niners got what they were hoping they were going to get. That was a Super Bowl window type of move, and I'm not sure if Floyd fits that timeline right now. Now, if he comes back, I don't hate it, but you're going to have more of an edge rotation opposite of Nick Bosa. And speaking of Nick Bosa, the Niners are going to show interest in Joey Bosa. It all comes down to the price tag, but keep an eye on him as far as the Niners being a destination for him after he got let go by the Los Angeles Chargers in a move that saved about $25 million in cap space for Los Angeles. To another defensive end, Yetur Gross-Matos. Once he overcame that knee injury, thought he played solid ball, but probably not at that price tag. If the Niners restructured his deal, that could open up just under $5 million. If they gave him a contract extension, it's not worth it. Only clears up $5 million. If he was cut, or if he was a post-June 1 designation, if he was cut, that's $2.86 million. If he was a post-June 1 guy, that'd be just shy of $8 million. Now keep in mind, every team across the NFL now has 2 post-June 1 designations to use at their disposal. Javon Hargrave will be one of them. There's another slot opened up. And for YTM last year, I like the athlete at 6'5", 265. I like the prospects and the versatility that he has of playing defensive end and defensive tackle. If he stays healthy for an entire season, I think that he can actually be a pretty good contributor. But the price tag is what's worrisome for me. Other players to monitor here, and all of these moves would save the Niners somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2 million. These players can be cut. These contracts can be restructured. These players can be given contract extensions. Now, with a player like Jake Brendel, I would never give him a contract extension. With a player like Colton McKivitz, he has value as a backup tackle or a player who can play along the interior or a cheap right tackle. For Kyle Juszczyk, I never think that you need to pay a fullback a lot of money in today's NFL. I think that the Niners could cut him. According to some buzz out there, they're already working to restructure his deal to a certain degree. He's already made a lot of coin at that fullback position. But all of these players are names to keep in mind. Whether or not they're going to be on this team in 2025 and beyond, we'll certainly see. But there are avenues that you can take that you can free up about $2 million depending on what you do with Juszczyk, McKivitz, and Jake Brendel. So in totality there, that is how the Niners can free up about $45 million in cap space going into free agency if they're pretty aggressive here. And again, I want to reemphasize this. Post-June 1 designations, that money is available, not for free agency, but later on in the offseason. That money can then be used towards something like a Brock Purdy contract extension, a George Kittle contract extension. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. This is your go-to destination for informative Niners coverage and daily Niners content right here on YouTube. So lock us in today and continue to hang out here with us. We will be doing a mailbag here, live Q&A coming up. If you want to get involved, use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. That's hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. More than 500 people watching live. Who's going to be the first person to send in a super chat? Who's going to be the one to send in that super chat? Awesome audience here. You're watching the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr. If you're just joining the show, we just went through a multitude of moves that the Niners can make, restructures, contract extensions, cuts, to free up about $45 million going into the offseason. Segment number 2, segment number 3, segment number 4, all still to come, so don't go anywhere. Continue to kick it right here live on the San Francisco 49ers Report. Our last segment number 4, will be that mailbag. So if you want to get involved, you want your voices to be heard, you want to ask me a question, use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat.
And there we go. Look at that. Right as you said it, baby. Got our first super chat.
Right on cue. First super chat coming in from Equivista. Hopefully I pronounced that right. $2 super chat. I want Jalen Milroe.
Woo.
You know, Jalen Milroe took a little bit of a step back under Kalen DeBoer as compared to what he did in 2023 under Nick Saban. But he's a good athlete, good character guy. He has success in throwing the long ball. His throwing mechanics and his accuracy, things that need to be refined a little bit. But as a developmental quarterback, I think he could have some potential down the road. I do worry about the hand size a little bit. He also did not perform well at the Senior Bowl. I think he needs some time to develop at the NFL level. But what do the Niners need? Regardless of whether or not they signed Brock Purdy to a contract extension, they need a backup quarterback. And I think they could use a developmental quarterback. We'll see if Tanner Mordecai is that guy. But Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, set to be free agents. And so the Niners, regardless, do need a backup quarterback for 2025. Coming up next here on the show, for those of you who don't know, NFL free agency starts on Monday. So I'm going to take a look at the top NFL free agents and top 10 players at every single position who the Niners can sign. Who's ready to get it? If you're ready for us to move into segment number 2, type me down in the comment section. And let's get to it. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. Thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And what we're going to get into, NFL free agency gets underway on Monday. The official new league year also coming up this upcoming week. So I want to take a look at the top 10 players at every single position who the 49ers can sign in free agency. Before we do all of that, if you're excited to see what the 49ers do this offseason, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Think about what's transpired already and think about what could come down the road. Robert Saleh hired as defensive coordinator. Brant Boyer hired as special teams coordinator. Couple of other coaching moves made by this coaching staff under Kyle Shanahan. Deebo Samuel got dealt. Brandon Aiyuk could be on the trade block. Niners have been busy. They're going to continue to be busy. So hit that subscribe button and like the video. Let's begin by taking a look at the top free agent quarterbacks. Some starters on this list, and of course some backups, as Brock Purdy is going to need a backup behind him in 2025. Sam Darnold leading the charge. Aaron Rodgers, if he wants to continue to play. A lot of buzz behind Justin Fields going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see if that happens, where that would leave Russell Wilson, who took over for Justin Fields as the starter about a quarter of the way through the season. Daniel Jones got let go by the Giants, latched on with the Minnesota Vikings, but he's going to be a free agent. Mac Jones is a popular name who's been tied to the Niners because Kyle Shanahan liked him in the pre-draft before San Francisco took Trey Lance. Marcus Mariota, good backup behind Jane Daniels with Washington, but he's going to hit the open market. Jameis Winston has some good moments, throws a lot of picks. Because of that and the inconsistencies there, it's better as a backup in this league. Jacoby Brissett has been one of the top backups in the NFL. And then Jimmy Garoppolo, the backup behind Matthew Stafford. The Rams really like him. Of course, a question mark at the Niners quarterback spot. Will the Niners get a deal done with Brock Purdy? We'll see. Regardless, San Francisco will be in the market for a backup quarterback. And so some of those names could be of interest to San Francisco. We flip the page to the top available free agent running backs. This class, nowhere near as good as last year's class, which was headlined by Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, who ended up being the top 2 running backs in the game statistically in 2024. Aaron Jones was also a free agent last year. He signed with Minnesota on a 1-year contract. He's going to hit the open market. J.K. Dobbins was really good for the Chargers, but has a lot of injury concerns. Najee Harris has some Bay Area ties if the Niners are looking for a physical running back. If they lose Jordan Mason and Harris wants to take a hometown discount, maybe Harris could make his way to his hometown team. Nick Chubb, great player, but a lot of injuries and severe injuries at that. Javonte Williams got off to a great start with the Denver Broncos out of North Carolina. Tore his ACL, hasn't necessarily been the same player since. Rico Dowdle, really good player for the Dallas Cowboys this past year. I imagine Dallas would like to bring him back. Kenneth Gainwell, solid backup running back behind Saquon Barkley. Third down ability as a pass catcher and pass protector. Ty Johnson, physical running back of the Buffalo Bills. I'm pretty sure that finally Kareem Hunt is going to be done, but who knows? If an injury happens, he could join a team at some point in the season. And then Cam Akers, never quite living up to his potential, but at moments, he's been a spark plug running back. Jordan Mason on this Niners roster is a restricted free agent. He could be a trade piece for San Francisco. And the Niners will have an opportunity to match a deal from another team if offered. They could also flex their muscles and place a second-round tender on Jordan Mason. And if a team really wants him to be their starter by placing a second-round tender on him and the Niners let him go, San Francisco could get back a second-round pick. The running back position is a little bit cloudy for San Francisco because you have Christian McCaffrey coming off of all those injuries. He's also 28 years old. That's a concern. And I like Isaac Guerendo. I was a fan of the selection in the 4th round, but he's been fragile throughout his football life. Top free agent wide receivers. We've talked a lot about Davante Adams here on the show. Grew up in East Palo Alto, went to Palo Alto High School, went to Fresno State. He's said to want to return to the West Coast. Chris Godwin coming off that ugly leg injury in which he had that ugly broken bone, but he's been a very productive player throughout his career with Tampa Bay. Stephon Diggs did tear his ACL last year. Keenan Allen is a go up and get it type of wide receiver who on a cheap deal could be of interest for the Niners. DeAndre Hopkins, another bigger wide receiver who's not going to blow past you, but can come down with those 50-50 balls and give you a physical element on the outside. Amari Cooper trending toward being washed. Didn't look great while with the Buffalo Bills teaming up with Josh Allen after that trade. Darius Slayton, I'd like him on the Niners, frankly. I don't think he's been able to show his best football because the quarterback play was bad. Mike Gesicki listed as a wide receiver, more of a tight end, but he doesn't block. Then there's Elijah Moore and Marquise Brown. I do think the Niners need to get a little bit faster. I would be a fan of a vertical threat on this Niners receiving core. The Bengals did put the franchise tag on T. Higgins, so technically not a free agent. They're going to try to negotiate a deal with him. But after the Deebo Samuel trade, wide receiver does become a little bit of a need, especially if the Niners trade away Brandon Aiyuk, and I would be a fan of signing Davante Adams. I know he's on the negative side of 30, but the production is still there. And low-key, he was really good with the New York Jets last year. Don't let the bad team overshadow what he was able to do. His numbers were and have been very consistent and elite. The top free agent tight ends. It's not a great class here. Juwan Johnson, Zach Ertz is old, but he's been great throughout his career. Tommy Tremble, Tyler Conklin, Patrick Ricard, you have Austin Hooper, John Bates, Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, a really good athlete, and then Gerald Everett. What I think the Niners should do is start to develop a young tight end too, next to George Kittle and behind George Kittle. And the Niners haven't signed George Kittle to a contract extension yet. And if they don't, you're going to need a young tight end on this roster to start to develop. I think that Mason Pline is a diamond in the rough player who might be able to become something after being on the practice squad all last year, has those basketball player traits, size, and athletic skills. But this is a pretty good tight end class in the NFL draft. So I would like to see San Francisco take a tight end and use more 2 tight end sets and maybe grab one in the first 3 rounds. Top free agent offensive tackles, Ronnie Stanley, the cream of the crop, and then it's everybody else. Dan Moore Jr. of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Morgan Moses got a clean bill of health of the New York Jets, Tyron Smith might decide to call it quits, but obviously a historic career for him. Cam Robinson did play well after he got traded to Minnesota due to the injury there to Christian Darrisaw. Jedrick Wills has never really turned into the player who a lot of people thought he was going to become. You have Kelvin Beachum. Jalen Moore is probably a top 5 tackle in this free agency class because of the age, the potential, and how he played, filling in for Trent Williams last year. Would not surprise me if a team banks on the upside and gives him $15+ million, because if he plays well, that could end up being a bargain. And then rounding out the list, Dan Skipper and DJ Humphries. Not a great offensive tackle market. So the draft is top heavy as far as offensive tackles. There are a lot of really good interior offensive linemen. Not a lot of good tackles in this draft class. That's why if Armand Membu falls to San Francisco at number 11, you got to take him. Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, I'm intrigued by them. Ariante Ursary, that's a player I would also look at. But in the second and third round, the talent skill really falls off. Whereas last year, it was a deep offensive tackle class. Either way, the Niners, in my opinion, need to draft a right tackle, an offensive guard, and a center to rebuild this offensive line. Because when good offensive linemen hit the open market, they can make some crazy money. And speaking of that, we go to the top offensive guards. There was a report from Tom Pelissero that Aaron Banks could cash in for $18 to $20 million per year. He's an average to good player. That's great money right there. So if you draft offensive linemen, they're under team control for 4 to 5 years. I think that is really the play. And then, of course, you're willing to spend on elite offensive linemen to retain them and not let them hit free agency. Top offensive guards available: Will Fries, Mekhi Becton, Patrick McCarry, Tevin Jenkins, good player, but he's always hurt. You have the aforementioned Aaron Banks. You have Ben Bredesen, Brandon Scherf, James Daniels, Kevin Zeitler, and Will Hernandez. The top 5, a lot better than the last 5 on your screen right here. And I alluded to it. The offensive guard market, it could go crazy. And a player like Drew Dahlman at center, the Niners are interested in him, according to my sources. I'd be willing to pay him $15 million per season. A team like the Chicago Bears, rumored to be interested in signing him for about $20 million per year. I'm not doing that when you can draft a rookie and pay them a fraction of the price. We're talking like a fifth of the price. So Drew Dahlman is a player who I'd love the Niners to sign. I think he's an excellent scheme fit for Kyle Shanahan, but it comes down to the price. Josh Myers has been a really good center. You have Ryan Kelly, Austin Corbett, Bradley Bozeman, Coleman Shelton, Brady Christensen, Liam Eichenberg, Evan Brown, and Nick Gates. Nick Gates is not good at all, so San Francisco should not go in that direction. Again, Drew Dahlman is the guy. Scheme fit. Still only 26. Grew up in Salinas, California. Dad played for the Niners. He went to Stanford. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have invested in centers. Weston Richburg, Alex Mack. But if he's going to be offered $20 million, go ahead and take it, because that's too much money. With that, I ask you this. Which offensive free agent do you want San Francisco to ink to a contract? Join the conversation down in the comment section right now. These Niners polos, thanks to our friends at Fanatics. These are the coaches' polos. Nike, they were $80. They are now on sale for just $43. All you have to do, use that link down below. chatsports.com/49polo. Get those polos while they're hot on the streets. Top free agent defensive tackles. Javon Hargrave will officially be a free agent. He's probably the second best defensive tackle in this free agency class. And I know that John Lynch has said, yeah, we're interested in bringing him back. I don't think they're going to be able to afford him, nor do I think they should bring him back. I think San Francisco needs to get younger, more athletic, and more explosive at that defensive tackle spot. And you can do that in the upcoming NFL draft. Milton Williams of the Philadelphia Eagles had a huge Super Bowl, had that strip sack of Patrick Mahomes as the splash play. He was the second highest graded pass rushing defensive tackle in the game. I think he's going to cash in between $18 to $20 million. Osa Odighizuwa was re-signed by the Dallas Cowboys, so not going to be a free agent, and that does put a dent in this free agency class. I'd be down for a reunion with DJ Jones, number 2 in run-stopping win rate among defensive tackles last year. You have Poona Ford. You have Levi Owuzurike. You have Jaron Reed, Tier Tart, Tershawn Wharton, and Calais Campbell, who can kind of play defensive tackle, defensive end. and he might be long in the tooth, but he's actually still playing some really good football. And speaking of this defensive tackle class, we were at the NFL Combine last week, and we had a feeling going into it, it's going to be a pretty deep defensive tackle class. Then you started to see all those defensive tackles working out, speaking with the media, the talent on display. The Niners can get 2 really upper echelon, in my opinion, defensive tackles in the first 4 rounds if they decide to go that route in the draft. Top free agent edge rushers. Joey Bosa could be the apple of the Niners' eye. He wants a reunion and to play with his brother Nick. Mama Bosa wants the Bosa brothers to play with one another. According to reports, the Niners are going to show interest in Joey Bosa. The concern with him, he's been hurt so much over the last few years, and it really comes down to the price tag. If he's willing to play for cheap, I'm down. If he wants a lot of money, see ya, because I'm not giving him that much coin because of the injury concerns. The production has been good when he's been on the field, but he hasn't been on the field enough. Josh Sweat, he'll get paid in free agency, especially after a really good season. You have Malcolm Kuntz, who's a solid player. Chase Young, some chatter that he could re-sign with the New Orleans Saints. Wasn't a cultural fit for San Francisco. Hassan Reddick still has some twitch and explosion off the edge. I don't think he handled that holdout well, but you could buy low on him, and as a pass rusher, still has a lot of ability. He's been very productive. DeMarcus Lawrence, older, I wouldn't take him. You have Dayu Adeyingbo. He is really starting to gain a lot of traction as an edge rusher of the Indianapolis Colts. Joseph Asai of the Cincinnati Bengals, Baron Browning, and Azeez Ojulari rounding out the list. Azeez Ojulari is a player who I'm very intrigued by. If I'm San Francisco, I'm checking in on him. And let's revisit Joey Bosa here. Again, important to emphasize, when he's been on the field, he's been productive. But he has not played 16-plus games since 2021. He does not have a double-digit sack season since that year. As a rotational player, even as a buy low starter opposite of Nick Bosa, it'd be a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to root for. Could you bank on him finally staying healthy? Potentially. But again, I want to emphasize, a lot of concerns with bringing in Joey Bosa to team him up with Nick Bosa. The top free agent linebackers. I'm keeping Zach Bond on this list because it could set the market for what some of these other linebackers are able to get. Zach Bond had 1 good year of production. He was an All-Pro, first team alongside Fred Warner, and a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. But he had that 1 good year of production, and he's 28 years old. He's still got $17 million per year. I think that's a good sign for the prospects of Dre Greenlaw getting paid. Obviously, he has massive injury concerns, and if a team gives him a multi-year deal worth a lot of money, it's a big risk. But if he stays healthy, that can end up being a franchise-altering move. I don't think the Niners are willing to do that because they want to get younger and they want to get healthier. You have Ernest Jones of the Seattle Seahawks. Nick Bolton has been a mainstay of one of the top defenses in the NFL with Kansas City. Jamian Sherwood is a player who thrived under Robert Saleh, has a defensive background, and he's an excellent athlete. Robert Spillane has been a good producer as far as tackles, but he's not great against the pass. Levante David, successful player for a long time. Bobby Wagner is a future Hall of Famer. Eric Kendricks signed originally with the Niners and then ended up spurning them, signed with the Dallas Cowboys. That's what led to the Niners signing Devondre Campbell, and that impacted this Niners defense because Eric Kendricks was pretty damn good for Dallas last year. Then you have Kaiser White. A lot of reports out there that Dre Greenlaw might be gone, and if he is able to get a contract, he should take that, considering the lack of money that he's made and the injury concerns that he's had. The top free agent cornerbacks here. Charvarius Ward, top cornerback in this free agency class. Second team All-Pro in 2023. The writing has been on the wall that he's going to leave the Niners. Love DJ Reed, but that corner market might be a little bit too rich. Carlton Davis, good year last year with Detroit. Prior to that, really good player with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What'd you say about Byron Murphy? Byron Murphy of the Minnesota Vikings, going to be a free agent as well. Rasul Douglas, really hard-nosed player and physical, kind of fits what the Niners might be looking for, especially out of the slot. Paulson Adebo coming off a broken leg, but very good player. You have Asante Samuel Jr., who's been a ball-hawking machine. Christian Fulton, Mike Hilton, and Jordan Lewis also going to be free agents. And then we take a look at the safety market. But first, just some thoughts real quick about DJ Reed. I would love for him to come back to the Niners. Didn't like how that tenure ended, and the Niners probably messed that up. They tried to get creative with finding a way to keep him on the roster, and then he gets scooped up by Seattle, balled out. Balled out so much that he landed that big deal with the New York Jets, 3 years, $30 million, and flourished under Robert Saleh. I love his versatility. He's very steady. He has not been injury prone, but I don't think the Niners are going to be in the market for a corner of that price tag of $15 to $20 million. They're going to let Charvarius Ward walk for that reason. They signed Diamador Lenore. They really like Renardo Green. I think they might try to go with the cost-efficient approach, and DJ Reed may have outpriced himself with how well he's been able to play of late. Top free agent safeties. Justin Reed of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's in his latter 20s. Talanoa Hufanga. I know he hasn't played a lot the last 2 years, but he's a former All-Pro who's only 25 years old. And because of that, I think a team gives him a bag. Javon Holland, I've liked him at moments, but he's been way too inconsistent. And I think a team might pay him $18 to $20 million. That's just too much. Trevon Merrick, Jeremy Chin. You have Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons, who's been an All-Pro before, Andre Sisco, Fidu Melifanu, and then Julian Blackmon, who is a player who the Niners showed interest in last year. And I think that you could get a player like that at a pretty affordable price. Now, I know some of you are going to say, Chase, you didn't show the list of kickers. I'm telling you right now, you don't want to see the list of the top kickers available because that list is slim. So you're hoping that Jake Moody works out. What I would do if I'm the Niners, I'm bringing in kicking competition for Jake Moody to push him a little bit. But if he doesn't work out, kicking could be a big question mark for San Francisco going into 2025. So that's offense, defense, top 10 players at every single position going into free agency. Name a defensive free agent now who you want the Niners to sign. Another $2 super chat. This one coming in from Tony Nagatani. Jalen Lane in the 6th. Hey, we have a mailbag coming up, and we could talk some NFL draft for sure. 530 people watching. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon. Like the video. Segment number 4, we will be doing a mailbag. Get those questions in. Hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat.
Yep, let's see.
How are we doing on questions, Chip?
Doing pretty well, actually, so far. Shout out Ronnie Baca, Mr. Block Ice. Seen some real ones in here. Chua But we could use some more questions, so get those in. Again, if you send in a super chat, ask a question, you're going to get to skip the line, baby. Right to the front.
Great 1765 said Barron and Makuba in the draft. Very good prospects coming up in this draft class. No doubt about it. Tony said go get Kendricks. He's older, though. Can D. Winters take a step? Can he get anything out of Jalen Graham? Tatum Bethune going into year 2. Niners have done a really good job of developing linebackers. I think they're hoping that some of their linebackers can develop going into this upcoming season. All right, coming up next, some very interesting details behind the trade of Deebo Samuel as told by Deebo Samuel. So we're going to get into that with segment number 3. So let's do it. Coming up here on the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports, my name is Chase Sr. We have some leaked intel on Deebo Samuel's departure from the San Francisco 49ers after he was traded to the Commanders last Saturday, as told by Deebo Samuel himself. Peeled back the curtain to give us some really good insight as far as how his Niners career went, his relationship with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, how the trade went down, and why he wanted to go to the Washington Commanders. It's all coming up right now, but I do want to pop up today's poll question. And I'm interested to see where the fan base is here, because Deebo Samuel, for more than a half decade, was a marquee player for this football team. And he's going to go down as one of the best at his prime and most unique Niners on the offensive side of the football in the history of this organization. It didn't end great, but are you going to remember some of the good moments? Will you miss Deebo Samuel? Type M for miss or W for won't miss. So the purpose of today's show is this. Deebo Samuel wrote a goodbye to San Francisco in the Players Tribune and a thank you note to all Niner fans out there, and in a really creative way and unique way, because oftentimes you don't see something like this with all of these in-depth details. He gave us some insight as to how his Niners career went, how the trade request went down, and why he's excited to join forces with Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. So here's what he had to say about his trade request in that article. And he said this: one day back in January, I walked into Kyle Shanahan's office and I said, bro, I don't think you actually know how hard it is for me to come in here and have this conversation with you. And that's the trade request that he's referring to. And he added, the relationship that me and Kyle Shanahan have is ridiculous. You can ask anybody in that building. 1 minute, he wants to knock my head off. The next, he's just going crazy, excited at something that I'm doing. I've always felt like he coaches me harder than anybody else because at the end of the day, he knows I ain't no sensitive-ass player. If you tell me I messed up, I take it on the chin. I go fix it instantly. But our relationship is more than just the coach and the player. Kyle knows damn near everything that I've been through in my life, and I damn near know everything he's been through in his life. It's like that. It's a bond that you can never break. So we talked it out. It was hard in its own way, but more than anything, I was just proud of the way that we handled it, both as men. We've always known that Deebo and Kyle have been tight. Kyle Shanahan has said, Deebo's my guy. Deebo Samuel has said, Kyle is my guy. But I don't think any of us knew it ran that deep. I don't think any of us knew they were that tight. And so it seemed as though it was a pretty emotional conversation between Deebo and Kyle. For Deebo to request the trade, and then probably for both of them thinking about all of the great moments that they had together. Deebo's rookie year, they made it to the Super Bowl. Then they made it to the NFC Championship again in 2021. Came up short. Made it to the NFC Championship game again in 2022. Came up short. Then they finally made it to the Super Bowl again in 2023. And probably both of them have regrets of not being able to have a parade in the Bay Area. And I do have respect to Deebo Samuel for how he handled this as a man, how he was honest with Kyle. And for him wanting to get coached hard. Because today's generation, it's a little bit soft. And sometimes when these athletes do get coached hard, they sulk and they crater and they crumble. Not Deebo Samuel. And that's probably why he ended up being a great player for Kyle Shanahan, who's been known to be tough, especially on wide receivers. Here's what Deebo said, too, about the trade and the process of it. It's funny. A few days ago, he said, when the trade happened, I was happy because this is something that I wanted. But as the day went on, my mind just kept fading off to all these damn memories, man. The memories that I got with Kyle, with John, with Brock, with Trent, it all came rushing back. And I'm like, damn, I'm not even kidding when I say the whole fairy tale played back in my mind. That's the only way I can describe it. I've come a long way from Spartanburg, South Carolina, young kids in the neighborhood running under the streetlights, all of us with the same dream. One day, I'm going to be in the NFL. I'm going to be the one to really do it. I remember riding home from Pop Warner practice one day at Park Hills Elementary School, and my Uncle Junior was like, bro, I'm telling you, you're going to make it to the league. Yeah, I hope so. I was like 7 years old. It's always very cool to see your dreams come true, to see our dreams come true, and to hear stories of people's dreams coming true. And I'm sure a lot of us as individuals can relate to that. Shoot, at 5 years old, I said, I want to be a sports broadcaster. What am I doing now? I'm a sports broadcaster. I'm compensated. I have a huge platform, a big brand, massive YouTube channels. It's awesome. For Deebo, he's probably thinking after that trade, it all started with me playing Pop Warner. playing under the lights in South Carolina. And look at where it's led to him, being one of the most unique weapons in the National Football League. And of course, Deebo Samuel added there, he wanted to get dealt. The Niners gave him his wish. And I kind of have respect to the Niners organization for how they handled it. They have respect for Deebo. So they treated him as such. And Deebo has respect for the Niners organization. He treated them as such. Now, did he handle the contract negotiations the right way a couple of off seasons ago? Yeah, probably not. Because he demanded a trade, he took to social media, he caused a lot of drama. But a lot of athletes do that these days. I'm sure Deebo might have regrets of him being out of shape. I wish he wasn't out of shape. Here's also how the relationship started after Deebo's South Carolina career with the 49ers. He said, God blessed me with the opportunity to come back my last year of college after a couple of injuries and play a full healthy season. And I played pretty well. We got a Senior Bowl invite, and this is where it gets kind of crazy to me. And this is one of the main reasons that me, John, and Kyle have been as close as we are, because they were the coaches for the South team at the Senior Bowl. And they told me after the game, hey, man, I feel like you were one of the best players out here. And if we get the opportunity, we're going to get you. And what did the Niners do in the 2019 NFL Draft? They took Deebo in the second round, and they saw something special in him at that moment. Deebo also mentioned being drafted was a whirlwind. He just couldn't believe it. Going to the Super Bowl as a rookie, he felt as though he was dreaming. He knew early going into the 2021 season and in the early portion of the 2021 season that he and the team could have a really special year. Ended up being a first-team All-Pro. And he also talked about the Niners getting back to the Super Bowl, him saying to himself, we got to win it, man. We got to do it. And as we know, the Niners kind of choked. They shot themselves in the foot on multiple occasions, and they weren't able to finish the deal. I do want you to think about Deebo going into 2025 with the Washington Commanders. Coming off that down year, will he be able to have a bounce-back season with Washington? Predict it for me down in the comments section right now. Our sponsor for today's 49ers Report, our friends at Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app in the game and the only DFS app that you should be using. Right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Basketball is in session. Some great basketball value deals, thanks to our friends on Prize Picks. And all you have to do is pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on their projected stats, and you can win some big-time money. Just use that link down below, prizepicks.com/CLNS, and then Prize Picks knows that Chat Sports sent you. We have some football picks for the upcoming season. Let's go less on the Jared Goff passing yards, less on the Travis Kelce receiving yards, and then Jaden Daniels less on the rushing yards. Daily Fantasy Sports made easy. Run your game with Prize Picks. We'll put that link down below in the comment section and in the description of today's 49ers Report. Deebo Samuel, furthermore on the trade, he said, I'm not going to lie. A lot of people think it's easy. I promise you nothing about this is easy. That organization is top tier, world class. John York, Jed York, effing John Lynch, Parag, my receiver coach, Hank, especially Kyle. I'm a firm believer in loyalty and being a man of your word, and that's one thing he showed me from the jump. At the end of the day, these guys put their trust in me to help turn their organization around, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And thank God I was able to come in and make a difference. For him to emphasize John effing Lynch, to mention Parag, they probably butted heads in a lot of these contract negotiations. And of course, he detailed his respect for Kyle Shanahan, which we outlined earlier. That's pretty telling right there. And the Niners are recognized by their own players and other players and agents across the NFL as being one of the best organizations in the game. I know fans are very frustrated with the Niners not completing their quest for 6, for coming up short, for choking away Super Bowls. But they are one of the best organizations in the game. And Deebo Samuel should be remembered as a special, special player in the scarlet, red, and gold. Unfortunately, it didn't end the way it should have. The Niners should have won at least one Super Bowl. You wish that he wasn't overweight. You wish the lasting memory wasn't partially him dropping that pass against the Rams, which kind of signaled and marked the end of his Niners tenure. But he also did much more good than bad while with San Francisco. More from Deebo on the trade to Washington. After I talked with Kyle, I talked to John, and he understood where I was coming from and gave me his perspective on everything. He called me and gave me permission to seek a trade. And we talked about why we thought it was a good move for both of us. And listen, for John and Kyle to send me to a team in the NFC that was almost a Super Bowl contender, it just shows you the type of love and relationship that we have. I know at the end of the day, they didn't have to do that, so it's not a lick of bad blood when it comes to me and that organization. It's always love. Deebo took the social media to say, no bad blood between me and the Niners. And after writing this article, you can tell, no bad blood between Deebo and the 49ers. Deebo also mentioned how the Niners have a college-like locker room culture. And again, I think that should be valued and understood. And it's notable to players on this team, but also other players who could think about signing with San Francisco. And a reason you have a good culture, when you have a good organization and you have stability and structure. And that starts with ownership, the head coach, and the GM. Deebo also seems to be pretty excited about playing for the Washington Commanders. He said, I think this is one of the best possible fits for me where I can go in and help a team. Honestly, when my agent asked me where I wanted to go, this is one of the teams at the top of my list. I started watching Jaden Daniels because of Brandon Aiyuk. That's like his best friend. We used to chill, watch LSU games, and I knew that he was going to be a stud at the NFL level. I've got some connections already with the coaching staff, definitely ready to work with Terry McLaurin for sure, because we came into the league at the same time. I've heard how hard he grinds. I'm just ready to match the energy and get to it. Shit, I got a feeling this season is about to be one of them ones. And he also said some of the Super Bowl seasons, he had a feeling they could be one of them ones. And he's going to a Commanders team that in the same conference as the Niners are legit Super Bowl contenders in 2025. It will not surprise me at all either if the Niners and Commanders play in the NFL playoffs this upcoming season. And that could be pretty crazy. Deebo going up against his former team, having a chance to bounce the Niners out of the playoffs, making big plays to change the outcome of the game, seeing Deebo in an ugly color red as compared to the scarlet red. It's going to be odd. But this is a move I think the Niners needed to make. Deebo wanted a fresh start, and I think it's good for the Niners to get a fresh start as well. So which team will have a better 2025 record? Will it be the Niners? Will it be the Commanders? Show your football knowledge and get ahead of the game with your predictions. Wet Noodle, $2 super chat. Glad you went live. I'm done with the DK talk. Now, Wet Noodle is a brave soul. He is a Niner fan in the Pacific Northwest. He's one of the few good people up in that portion of the country. And I imagine everybody up there is talking about DK. Requested a trade from the Seahawks. And I'm not sure what the future and what the plan is for Seattle. All right. Mailbag coming up to round out our live show.
Let's do it, baby.
I'll also be live with Larry Krueger tomorrow, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, 10:45 a.m. Pacific. We'll talk plenty of Niners tomorrow.
Last chance, get those questions in. Super chat, hashtag 49ers. Talk draft, free agency, trade stuff. One interesting thing, Chase, this poll question you put in here. A little bit surprised by the results. 65% of people said the Niners should trade Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think people are just done with it.
Yeah.
How he handled the contract. Then he got hurt. Before he got hurt, he looked awful. And so Niner fans are like, shoot, we trade Deebo away, trade Aiyuk away as well. It's crazy.
Is it that crazy to think, like, if you do trade Aiyuk, receiver all of a sudden with that 11th pick?
It's in play. Tet McMillan, Luther Burden. They could also trade back to get a player like Luther Burden or Tet McMillan if he falls. and then get an offensive lineman or defensive lineman at the back half of the first round, I actually don't mind that team strategy at all.
It's crazy. Oh, it's funny how fast stuff can change in the NFL, man.
Insane. Live Q&A coming up. If you want to be involved, get your questions answered or your hot takes relayed, use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Last call. You know, Larry Cartwright Jr. said Tyler Warren. I was ahead of this before anybody else in saying the Niners. Tyler Warren falls to number 11. It'd be a fascinating pick. I think he's one of the sure things in this draft, where he's going to be a great player for the next decade. It's an awesome player. One of my favorite players in this draft class. Abdul Carter, number 1. Shoot, with the testing of Mason Graham, Tyler Warren might be my second favorite player, followed by Travis Hunter, friend of the show, and then Mason Graham after that. Armand Membu might be number 6. Like them all. All right, mailbag coming up. Let's answer your questions live here on the show. Excited to take your questions right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and what I want to do, open up the floor, take questions, hot takes, and some analysis from our real ones, our viewers and our subscribers, as we discuss and chop it up with the latest Niners news and rumors. We are shooting for 158,000 subscribers. I think we do a better job than any other YouTube channel out there that covers the Niners with interacting with the audience. I don't see a lot of people doing a lot of mailbags on YouTube. We do it here in addition to giving you informative, insightful, thought-provoking, creative Niners content. We're 370 people away from 158,000 subs. We can get there with this video. Just lock us in and hit that sub button right now. Let's start things off with Nelson VR. What do you think Brock Purdy is worth? Do you think they will get a deal done with him? I do think that the Niners ultimately get a deal done with Brock Purdy. But I think it could take a little while, especially with some of the recent developments on that front. And I don't think the Niners should pay Brock Purdy $60+ million per year. And I think that after they've had some time after the year to examine things a little bit, to take an in-depth look at their financial situation, they should not give him $60 million per year. And I don't think they want to get bullied by one of their players and their player's agent in a contract negotiation having to do with the contract extension like they have the last couple of years with the likes of Brandon Aiyuk, Nick Bosa, and Deebo Samuel. And so there is some chatter that the Niners' starting offer to Purdy is about $45 million per season. I don't think that Purdy will sign that deal, but I think that if he signs a deal somewhere in that realm, I think it's a win for San Francisco because it just allows you to build up the rest of your team. And as we saw in 2024, Brock Purdy isn't one of those alien quarterbacks who can make do with subpar parts. He needs parts around him. And I know the NFL salary cap is going to continue to go up, but just because other teams have overpaid quarterbacks doesn't mean the Niners should do the same. Billy Bob, $5. I said it all last year. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk would be traded. Aiyuk is next. Isn't it funny, revisionist history? Because Deebo Samuel blocked me when I talked last offseason about the possibility of him getting traded. A year later, he requests a trade, and he gets traded. It's funny how people will be in the comments section saying, Chase, you're chasing clickbait. Deebo and Aiyuk aren't going to get dealt. You're crazy. Deebo, dealt. Niners taking calls on Brandon Aiyuk. At the NFL Combine, I asked John Lynch specifically about the Niners trading Aiyuk and fielding calls on him. He did not shoot it down. Some of these things, to me, were easy to foresee because the Super Bowl window was not going to last forever. They were a high cash spending team, and at some point they needed to reset the team a little bit. They didn't quite need to rebuild, and they don't need to rebuild. But as far as the salary cap goes, yeah, they do need to tinker with some of the salaries on their team. And they did that with Deebo. They're trying to do it potentially with Brandon Aiyuk. And at this point, won't surprise me if Aiyuk is dealt. I just find it surprising if a team is willing to take on that contract, give up draft compensation for that price tag coming off that severe injury. Mr. Block Ice, did you hear any updates as far as Myles Garrett trade talks? No real updates on that front, but Niners cornerback Deommodore Lenoir stirring the pot a little bit. He tweeted out this week, Myles. We heard what Fred Warner and George Kittle said about landing a player of that ability. And they said, look, we're all for bringing in players like this. George Kittle said, we could be good friends. Fred Warner said he'd fit right in. And so no real developments of the Niners' interest in Myles Garrett, but the players seem to be interested, which is very interesting. John Craighead, what's up, Chase? Love the show. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. If the Niners cannot get Drew Dahlman, who is your number 2 free agent? I don't really have a number 2 free agent center. What I think the plan should be for San Francisco is drafting a center day 2 or day 3. There are some really good centers in this draft class. Gray Zabel's one of them out of North Dakota State. I'm also interested in what Drake Nugent can become, who is a UDFA who the Niners signed after the draft last year out of Michigan. Started every game for Michigan. Started on a team that played bully ball up front. He's a good athlete. He'd be a good scheme fit. Michigan went on to win the national championship. Smart and cerebral player who prior to Michigan played at Stanford. I just do not want to see Jake Brendel being the starting center for this team in 2025. It's not good enough. It's not strong enough. Simple as that. What say you, though? Which offensive free agent do you want the Niners to sign? As always, interested in all of you sharing your thoughts down in the comments section. Joe G, a real one, has been watching the show for a long time. Myles Garrett or Trey Hendrickson? I prefer Joey Bosa because the Niners could get a family discount. Yeah, so all different players in their own respects, right? Myles Garrett's 29. Trey Hendrickson is 30. Both of those players, you need to trade for them. Myles Garrett, younger and better than Trey Hendrickson. So you need to squander a first and or second round pick at least for Myles Garrett. For Trey Hendrickson, and you probably need to give Myles Garrett a contract extension. For Trey Hendrickson, he's going into the final year of his deal. $16 million, non-guaranteed. You'd probably have to guarantee that contract and give him a contract extension. He's a little bit older. He's 30, but my goodness, he's still playing awesome football. 17 and a half sacks in each of the last 2 years. That's 35 sacks, leading all players in the NFL the last 2 seasons. If I'm the Niners, I'm calling the Browns and the Bengals about both of those players. I want to know what it takes. And I think Trey Hendrickson is going to be the odd man out. Joe Burrow has said, I need us to be aggressive. And I think the Bengals are going to do that by re-signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Because they think that they can win with offense. Although last year their defense stunk. But can you imagine Nick Bosa with Myles Garrett and or Trey Hendrickson? The thing with Joey Bosa is that he's a free agent. So you don't have to give up anything in a trade to bring him in. You can sign him for much cheaper than the going rate for Hendrickson and Garrett. But the concerns with him, the last time he played 16-plus games was in 2021. The last time he had double-digit sacks was in 2021. But what if you get him for like $5 to $10 million? I'd entertain it. You hope and hold your breath that he can stay healthy because when on the field, he has been very productive. Texas 575. Your thoughts on being able to obtain Cam Skattebo in the draft or if he's even worth going after. I like Cam Skattebo. I think he's physical. I think the Niners have questions at running back. Christian McCaffrey's coming off bilateral Achilles tendonitis and a PCL injury in his knee. Isaac Guerendo is injury prone. The Niners might lose Jordan Mason, who's a restricted free agent. And Cam Skattebo is a fascinating player because he's very physical. He has a good center of gravity, really good balance. He's versatile. He can run it. He can catch it. Ideally, you take him in the third round, but a team might like him in the second. But I think that Kyle Shanahan could really have some fun with using a player like that. The testing was pretty good at the combine. He did not run the 40-yard dash, but everything else pretty explosive. I also think that you can use him as a fullback, and he would be much cheaper than a player like Kyle Juszczyk. The Lord Shasta, what up, man? Your thoughts, or who do y'all have us drafting in rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7? My goodness. We would be here for a long time if I went through my mock rounds 3 through 7. I'll give you positions of need. Right tackle, guard, center, defensive end, defensive tackle. Those are the biggest needs on this football team. After the trade of Deebo, wide receiver becomes a need. You need another corner. You need another linebacker. You might need a safety. Those are the biggest needs on this team. Tight end, too. You can address that in the draft as well. Bryant Cowart, what's up, brother? $5 super chat, writing you from Brazil right now. How about that? Can the Niners win a championship with 2 new receivers next year? For sure. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. You know, in 2022, the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl with Devontae Smith in his second year, and that was after they traded for A.J. Brown. Wide receivers can get acclimated with their quarterback. And the Niners, you bank on Brock Purdy bouncing back. You bank on Kyle Shanahan having a better year. You hope that Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. You have to improve the offensive line. But 2 new wide receivers, I don't think prohibits you from being able to win a championship. And this Niners team is still plenty talented. Have a great trip in Brazil, my brother. Wild Child. Is Davante Adams a real possibility or only if Aiyuk gets traded? I think it's a real possibility regardless. Whether Aiyuk's on this team or not. I think Davante Adams is a real possibility. You know, when the likes of some of the top NFL insiders are saying he could have interest in the Niners or does have interest in the Niners, and the Niners having interest in him, when people are saying that he wants to return to the West Coast, only a certain amount of teams on the West Coast. And Davante Adams is still playing at a very high level. And he gives the Niners a wide receiver and a prototype that I think they want after trading Deebo. They want to remake that room a little bit. Footwork, route running, size. Deebo did not have good footwork, did not have good route running, did not have good size. He was unique in the way that he could pick up yards after the catch, and he was a threat for a house call anytime he had his hands on the football. But when teams started to play press man, he couldn't beat it. Davante Adams can. And he's still playing at a really high level. Should the Niners go after Davante Adams? S for sign, P for pass. Isn't it crazy how he's like 31, and then Jerry Rice played until he was, 40, 41? It's another decade for Davante Adams. Wouldn't that be nuts? Yeah, crazy. Jerry Rice, truly one of one. Truly one of one. All right, we're about to sign off and head on out of here. We will be live all next week for NFL free agency right here on the 49ers Report. Do not miss our coverage. We're going to have some great Super Chat giveaways and competitions, and we'll talk about every move that the Niners make and all moves across the entire National Football League. Thanks to Chip for producing the show. Thanks for all of you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.